Hello, I'm Stephen Cole. At the Listening Post this week, as Turkey's elections deliver a landslide victory for the Justice and Development AK Party, we ask what next for the media there. Hollywood goes to war with a little help from the Pentagon, and Crime or Punishment, the mass recreation of Michael Jackson's Thriller routine by Filipino jailbirds. But first, as Turkish voters absorb the consequences of the landslide victory by the ruling Justice and Development AK Party, the media in Turkey have been analysing what it means for them. Economic growth and private investment over the past 4 years has resulted in an expansion of television and radio stations, but it's the continuing debate over big questions like secularisation and Article 301, which makes it a crime to insult Turkishness, that are currently occupying the media. And that's our starting point this week, reporting on the tensions of religion and nationalism, the two big issues challenging the media in Turkey. Turkey's recent elections gripped the domestic and international media as the Islam-based Justice and Development AK Party battled it out against secular and nationalist parties in the polls.
Turkey has been getting a lot of attention. This is a country that is in a sea of trouble, surrounded by countries which are completely unstable. And here you have a country which predominantly is Muslim, constitutionally is secular. Its government is formed by a party which has some Islamic roots, and yet it is a completely pro-Western government.
The ruling AK Party's landslide victory attracted record audiences at home.
This time, the public opinion was very much interested because it was like a World Cup final. You know, it was AKP versus the seculars, the Islamists versus seculars, which is nonsense. I mean, we spent hell of a money to get the best graphic, the best designers, the best guests there. So it's huge. Therefore, we've had a good time, really.
Turkish media was privatized in the 1990s and now covers a broad spectrum of political opinion. But according to David Judson, editor of the English-language Turkish Daily News, coverage of the elections was balanced.
I think by and large, the free media that's available, the talk shows, the public fora that was made available for candidates to express their views was remarkable and open, and it was in media terms pretty democratic.
However, some organizations like Zaman, a newspaper with right-wing Islamic sympathies, were accused of biased reporting.
Some people are associating our political line, editorial line, with the AK Party's line. So, but we do not have any link, any financial link with any political party. I say, as Zaman, that we tried to be as just, as fair as possible to parties. But I mean, if you are making a public meeting and gathering 1 million people, and when you are an independent candidate who is not able to gather even a handful of people, so there should be a difference in the coverage. This is, I guess, something that we should accept.
Foreign media also attracted criticism for oversimplifying the story.
There was an exaggeration in this assessment in the West that this was a kind of a campaign or a battle between the secularists and the Islamists. This was not the case. Although, of course, the AKP, which is the ruling party, is considered to be Islamic-rooted. I mean, it has not an Islamic program.
Time magazine ran a story called Turkey Divided, focusing on the fears of young secularist voters about a return to an oppressive Islamist regime.
They used the picture of this girl with her hair covered, you know, to illustrate this sort of classic standoff between the two forces. So I sent a reporter to interview the girl who was interviewed and who was on the thing, and she said that Time magazine got it entirely wrong, and that's why we wrote the headline, Time got it wrong, say experts. That in her discussion with Time magazine, she talked about some of her friends wore headscarves, Some of her friends didn't wear headscarves, but that didn't fit the prototype of the story. But I think that that example of Time magazine is emblematic of what 99% of the Western media does. That they've got a simple little two-dimensional story to tell, whereas Turkey is a very, very complex three-dimensional country.
The AK Party may have its roots in political Islam, but on his election, the Prime Minister, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, promised to respect the secular constitution and to continue pursuing Turkey's bid for EU membership. This was seen as good news for many in the country's mainstream media.
The future of media in Turkey depends on the future of Turkish democracy and Turkish economy. They are very much interrelated. If Turkey's bid to EU membership continues, these are very important elements that we would find a media atmosphere that is more competitive and more independent and more trustworthy.
However, Turkey's notorious Article 301, which makes it a criminal offence to insult Turkishness, still stands in the way of press freedom and the country's EU accession. At least 65 people have been prosecuted under the article, including the newspaper editor Hrant Dink. He was shot dead in March this year. Rober Koptas worked with Dink on the Turkish-Armenian paper Argos.
Bu ülkenin hukukunu, bu ülkenin hükümetlerini çok ciddi anlamda suçluyorum. Oradaki
I completely blame the law and the government in this country for pressing charges against Hrant Dink, which incited people to plot his murder. I believe his assassination was the direct result of being made to stand trial, and the government, the Turkish justice system and the police share responsibility for his death.
Türkiye yargısının, Türkiye emniyet kurumlarının bu yüzden suç ortağı olduğunu düşünüyorum ve bu yüzden onları suçluyorum.
However, not all journalists are in favour of scrapping the law.
The more nationalist-oriented journalists tend to be in favor of the article because to them it symbolizes the protection and guaranteeing the secular nationalist republican character of the Turkish state.
The most significant change to the media landscape following AK Party's re-election are the proposals to allow increased foreign investment.
Even today we have Murdoch. Canadians are coming. The Germans are going to buy a share of our company. So it's going to be international, more international press. It's good because they bring their own expertise and we bring our own. And from there we find something new. It's fantastic. I'm very optimistic as far as Turkey's future is concerned, economically. And as far as the media is concerned, the past is gone, long gone. It's a new Turkey now.
Our global village voices now, and their views on that story.
I think Turkish media is very fortunate with the current administration because the current administration has been fairly liberal towards the media in general. One of the reasons for this is Turkey's application into the European Union. Brussels has kind of pressured Turkey to take a step back when it comes to things like freedom of speech and the media's expression of that.
When we look at the newspapers and TV channels in Turkey, we observe that mainstream newspapers and TV channels such as Milliyet, Hürriyet, Yeni Yüzyıl, Referans, even CNN Turk TV channel belong to one certain big holding, and we realize that the affiliation and the affinity of the owners of this big one holding determines the course of the coverage of elections as well.
Too many organisations have focused on one issue and have tried to make this election simply about secularism versus Islam. And clearly there are far more issues at stake. Now, true, millions of people took to the streets of Turkey to discuss the whole issue of whether the secular nature of the state was being challenged or not. But in terms of the coverage, an election is about much more than one issue.
If you have something to say about the media and want to be one of our global village voices, it's straightforward. Just email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net. We want to hear from you wherever you are and however you want to deliver that message. Tasty morsels of media news now, or listening post news bites. 1 year on from the war against Hezbollah, 2 Israeli journalists have caused a media storm in Lebanon by sneaking into the country to file reports. Israeli journalists are barred from Lebanon, but the 2 used Canadian and Brazilian passports in order to gain entry. Lisa Goldman from Channel 10 Television News and Rinat Malkez from the Israeli daily Yedio Arono interviewed several unsuspecting Lebanese about the war. They claim they were duped into cooperating and their comments were used out of context. Goldman's report in particular caused an outcry when she downplayed bomb damage to Beirut. The Lebanese Information Minister Ghazi Aridi said the journalists' actions were aimed at sowing chaos amongst the Lebanese. And staying in Lebanon, NBN anchor Sorsan Darwish is back on air. She was fired for remarks she made during coverage of the bombing that killed a Beirut MP in June. Not realizing that a mic was still open and live, audiences were shocked to hear Darwish laughing and speculating about which of the anti-Syrian opposition ministers might be killed next. On her first appearance since the dismissal, Darwish apologised for her comments. Darwish still faces legal proceedings over the incident, and some MPs have suggested that her reinstatement had nothing to do with contrition and everything to do with the fact the station is owned by pro-Syrian Parliament Speaker Navi Berri. We reported a while ago on a controversial hoax television show from Big Brother creator Endemol, in which 3 kidney patients competed against each other to win a transplant organ. The Big Donor show was widely condemned in the press at the time as a new low for television, but recent figures from the Netherlands, where the programme was aired, show a sharp rise in organ donor registrations. According to the Dutch media, 12,000 people signed up as donors following the show, compared to the monthly average of 3,000 to 4,000 people. Remember Farfall, Al-Aqsa TV's pro-Palestine Mickey Mouse lookalike who came to a sticky end last month? Well, the ashes of the martyred mouse has risen. A new character, Nahul the bee. Al-Aqsa introduced the bee to its young viewers a couple of weeks ago, and the character has promised to buzz along the path of his dead cousin Farfall. It is one of the first victims of the growing popularity of online news, and after nearly 30 years reporting Elvis sightings and UFO landings, American spoof tabloid The Weekly World News is turning off the presses. The last print issue comes out in August, and after that the paper will only be available online. The publishers haven't given a reason for the suspension of the tabloid, but there are rumours of aliens abducting the printing presses. Stand by for The Weekly World News, Moon Edition. Coming up after the break, the Pentagon goes to Hollywood, and how the military is helping out the USA's most patriotic filmmakers.